This is the Tales from Davidstown podcast, delving into the behind the scenes of the audio series, graphic novel, and more, as well as speaking with the actors, writers, producers, and other creatives that bring the Davidstown world to life. This full-length episode for our Patreon residents was recorded on the 20th of January 2025 in York, England.
Hello and welcome back to the Tales from Davidstown podcast. My name is Louella, and for our third episode of the podcast, I am very happy to introduce our star, Danni.
Hi.
Hi, this is so exciting. I've never met you before.
No.
Well, I have. I met you about an hour ago.
Literally.
In person. Yeah.
But I feel like I've known you because of social media. So.
Yes, yeah. I said earlier, it's like you put a name to a face, but actually I've already done that. But now it's like putting the name to the face, but it's also in real life.
We're getting a vibe.
Yes. Yeah.
We're vibing.
So we're going to chat all things Tales from Davidstown today. With you, we're going to talk about your journey with the series so far, and most importantly, get to know a bit more about you, Danni, because I think our audience would just love to know more about you and your journey as an actor and voice acting and all of those things. So we're just going to have a nice little chat today about that. So Zelda's sorry, my brain gets so easily distracted.
Me too.
Zelda's over there climbing all over Cal behind the camera. It's great. I love it. So how are you, Danni?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
I have to say you're looking lovely today.
Oh,
We're doing
thank
really
you.
good camera colours.
I feel
the
like
red
the
blazer.
red definitely pops a little bit. That's why I
She's-
bought it.
She's giving business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lady Werewolf means business.
Absolutely. There's no other word to describe.
Talk me through the outfit choice for today, because I can see the necklace is very on theme.
Oh, yeah. Well, I love stuff like this. This is like kind of my style anyway.
Yeah.
So it just definitely fits the theme of Tales from Davidstown. The cat is rubbing her head on my
Hey,
mic.
Zelda.
Hi. You're not supposed to be here, kitty.
Zelda's Zelda's a producer on the show,
She
she's just checking in. She's making sure that we're doing what we're meant to be doing. It's very, very important. We're in Davidstown. You know, we've got a black cat. We have a familiar.
Well, it's very fitting. It's quite supernatural.
It is very supernatural.
You can be in the show if you want.
Yeah, give her a role.
Give her a role. Well, probably not my pet, because I'd eat her.
No, I don't think werewolves and black cats. That's not it. But the witch, maybe. Seraphina. Yeah,
absolutely.
Maybe she could be a familiar for Seraphina.
Bit cliche, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Okay, well, you know what? Sometimes we love a cliche.
Maybe the cat should be Jess's cat.
Emily
like
does have a cat, by the way.
She does have a cat, but it's not this one. No.
That's true. How's the cat doing then? How's Emily's cat doing with the werewolf thing?
I don't even think Emily knows how her cat's doing right now. There's so much going on in her life that the cat is probably not her main concern.
The cat and her are taking some time to process their separate journeys.
Yeah,
perhaps.
I think so.
The cat saw the werewolf and went,
Just try not to eat the cat.
I'll stay outside. Yeah. Well, that's one of the unexpected issues, I suppose, of becoming a werewolf, isn't it? If you've got pets in the home.
They won't survive, no.
See, these are the questions that people aren't asking, guys.
I feel like this is a very important question.
Yeah.
What would happen to the pets?
What happens if you've got a cat?
Well, for clarification, we only see the cat in one episode.
Yeah.
She is mentioned at least, I think, twice. So we know she's alive.
She's alive.
She's alive. And the first time that Emily turns into a werewolf in the pilot, she runs away from her Sarah before she transforms.
Yeah, well, cats are smart. They take care of themselves.
I feel like they've got good intuition.
They do, yeah.
They're
the cat is alive and well, everyone. Don't worry about it. No cats were harmed during the making of this show.
The cat only doesn't have a name.
Salem. No, that's too cliche as
Oh,
well.
okay. We're saying
Luna.
Luna, that's a good name for a cat. Yeah, if we want to name the cat, anyone, send in some suggestions. Okay. Emily's cat needs a name. Yeah. Zelda's now with us, so just let me know if she's just fixing you up. She's just fixing you there.
Sidetracked by the
We've
cat.
really sidetracked there. So I was talking your sense of style, because this is a supernatural show, and I can see your sense of style is unique. You've got your moon necklace on. It's very fitting to the theme, actually.
Yeah.
Has this always been sort of your vibe?
Yeah.
I suppose is the word I would use.
I mean, usually I wear a lot of black.
Yes.
But I thought, today if we're doing a podcast, I definitely can't wear black. I feel like it would blend in too much with the background. I thought I'm gonna go poppy, bright
colours.
colours. I've got quite an alternative wardrobe, but at the same time, it's also quite versatile because I do a lot of modelling and stuff. So I have to buy things for that as well. I can't just wear black.
Well, actually, that's a question that we have. I'll jump in with this now. As a question that we've got from one of our subscribers. So the username is Agent 00 Soul has asked, what have been some of your modelling jobs?
Some of my modelling jobs. Yeah. Now, I've never done a werewolf photo shoot.
Funnily enough.
Unless it was for Tales from Davidstown. But I have done a lot of themed photo shoots. So I'd say that I'm quite open to doing different types of modelling shoots. The main ones that I do are quite different from each other. So if I shoot, for example, like a fashion shoot one day, the next time I do a shoot, it would be more like a theme, like Queen of Hearts from, like I like to change it up because I think being an actor as well, you need to do that if you want to be a model as well, because it kind of gives that. I like to be versatile, so I like to do different things.
Yeah, so you've done a shoot as Queen of Hearts?
I have, yeah.
Ooh.
And I did a weird shoot as well, which was, I think it was last year, where I had to have a makeup artist do it for me.
Okay.
And I had this big pink wig on, and I had like sweets, candy like stuck to me to do like a candy-themed photo shoot. It was very kind of outside of the box. Can
we get a picture of that as well?
Yeah, I can send you a photo of that. It's no problem.
Insert here.
Insert here.
Yeah, that sounds great. How did it take a long time to get into that?
I think
costume?
Sometimes when you're doing themed photo shoots, most of the time that you spend when you're doing the shoot is on the hair and makeup.
Sure.
And I think it's kind of the same for acting. Like if you were to do a werewolf or like Nosferatu, for example, or like Pennywise. I'm using Bill Skarsgård as an example.
Yeah.
It takes quite a long time to do the hair and makeup for things because it needs to be a particular way. But like when you're actually doing the photo shoot, it maybe an hour.
Yes, but it's the getting ready process, isn't it?
It's quite tiring because you just sat there and you're like, I'm very fidgety. I like to move. I'm very active. So being sat down for so long, it kind of bothers me. I know. I'm like, I need to do this. So this is what I need to do.
You know, I get exactly what you mean. I have the same problem. Being sat down, being static doesn't suit me. I feel like that's why we do what we do, right? As actors, exactly. I feel like that's why this suits us.
Yeah.
I mean, this is quite an active role, actually. We might be recording it as an audio drama at the moment, but when you're actually in the studio, it's very physical, actually, especially because of the role that you play.
Well,
right?
Carl will back me up here. I actually act it out.
Yeah.
Most of the time I act it out, if not all the time. But like the werewolf transformation, I have to literally like hunch over and like obviously not get on the floor because I need to be near the microphone, but like everything else is just pure acting. Like
they're holding them up, they're trying to
my nose out, my face out when the face is getting longer and my hands are getting longer. I actually do it like I just act it out. Yeah,
you've got to really imagine those things are happening to you. So you've got to sort of
it really helps your mindset as well get into that role better. Whereas if you were just static, I wouldn't be able to do that. I'd have to act it out. I'd be like, no, it needs to be acted out because it's such an intense transformation that it needs to be done in a certain way.
Yes.
And I feel like when you're doing audio work, you need to add that kind of physicality behind the microphone as well to make it believable to listen to.
But that makes perfect sense though.
Yeah.
I feel like now that you describe it that way, I have been dying to ask Danni all about how she does the acting for this because I don't get to see it. We don't get to see each other work on our parts.
It's very strange, isn't it? Because when you listen to it, you think we're all in the same room and that we're all working together, but we're not. We're on different days. We're in at different times. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You don't actually see anybody.
And yet, as a listener, you're hearing these relationships take place in the series and the chemistry between them during scenes of dialogue, and yet these actors are not together in the room. It's not like a TV show or a theatre production where you're face to face with your actors, with your scene partners, with the cast.
It's a lot more difficult, isn't it? It's voice work because you've got to really put your imagination to the test and imagine that this is happening. You're in this scene. Your mind is in a complete different place to where you actually are. And I think that's why I actually really love it. I think it's so. It's such a challenge and I love that. I love that it's so challenging in a positive way where, I've got to really work hard at this, because you're losing like 4 of your senses, really.
That's true.
You've only got your hearing, and you're like, oh, interesting. How do they do this then?
Yeah.
But, it's everyone thinks, like, especially people that I know that have listened to Tales from Davidstown, they've all thought that we've been in the same room at the same time. I'm like, no.
Yeah, but you imagine that they would be, which is a testament to how good you all are. Of course.
Oh, thank you.
You know, there's a lot of talent there. I mean, as well, have you done any voiceover acting work before?
Not until I did this.
No.
No.
So this was your first voice role?
Yeah.
Audio what words am I using here? Let me go back on that.
Audio horror. Audio horror. Radio horror. I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Audio drama. Voice acting. Your first voice acting role. This was. Yeah.
The only time I've ever done any voice acting per se before this was just voiceovers in a film.
Okay.
But it's not really been for anything like this. This is completely unique for me. And it's so fun. I love it. It's very interesting to know that you can really delve into different aspects of acting. Yeah. And it still be really believable. Like when you're listening to it and stuff, it's like, oh my God, you can. Cause I think it's good because like a lot of people, especially in 2020, I'm going to say 2024, it's not 2024, 2025. Yeah. I stopped myself then. Especially in 2025, people are listening to a lot of audiobooks now. Mm-hmm. So instead of reading, they're listening. And I think that kind of really helps us like grow, because I think people love stuff like the supernatural and stuff like horror is massive. It's got a big audience, and I think to do that in an audio series is so interesting because not many people have that as much. So I just love it. I love it. I love being unique and doing the show. It's so fun. It
must be fun to be part of something unique, like you say. And did you always want to act in like a horror or a fantasy series? Has that been something that you've known you wanted to do?
Yeah, I would absolutely love to be the final girl. Yes. In horror, in kind of like the protagonist that survives at the end and holds the story together like glue. I really love that, and I think it's so fun to play a character like that because it's so physically demanding as well, especially like when you watch like Friday the 13th or A Nightmare on Elm Street, like the original horrors from the 80s and 70s, like those types of films were, you know, very physical, and the girl was always the survivor at the end, and I kind of love that. I love that because it's got its own kind of niche, and I love that. I think it's very...
I watched the Scream movie, like the first one. I watched that for the first time recently. I never actually sat and watched those films.
Oh, really?
And I just was like, this is so fun. It's such a fun watch, and I love all the themes and, like you say, the characters that you get in those films. And there's a lot of nostalgia around horror, which I think is where... in my experience, the horror fans that I've spoken to, they love the nostalgia of it and the retro vibes, and that's such a huge part of what they like as well. Yeah. Which is why they also like all the merchandise and all of the things surrounding it, you know. So I think that Tales from Davidstown also has that.
It does,
as well,
absolutely.
Because there's that nostalgia, like you say, to have a really good horror story with practical effects and being the final girl and all of these themes that we love. That's what horror fans want to see. Like they want to see that play out.
And I feel like Emily is, you know, she is kind of, well, she's not a final girl as such, but she is the protagonist that is like the glue as well. And all these other characters are coming in, and then there's Jess and, you know, the detective, and then there's, you know, there's so many other characters that are coming into it, and it just keeps growing and getting more and more intense and more interesting and intriguing. And I think by the end of season 2, it's going to thrive. It's going to absolutely thrive. I'd be very shocked if it didn't, and that's just not me being biased, but like as somebody that, as an actor, like you kind of do I tend to do this because it's something I've trained to do, is watch yourself like you're not watching yourself or listening to yourself and pretending you're not in it or part of it, and then being like, make an actual real judgment of it instead of being so critical of yourself and just thinking, actually, this is really good. And I think Tales from Davidstown does have, it's constantly on a roller coaster. You're going through different things and everybody's journey is completely different. And you know, the characters are starting to link more, and there's that, I don't know, there's just so much going on. It's so good because there's so much going on that it kind of just draws you in. You're like into every single storyline in it.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my God, yeah, oh, that character's coming in. Oh, that, you know, this character's coming
There's
in.
so many opportunities for the story to go somewhere that you can see. Yeah, we're not being biased, guys, but it's very interesting.
We are a little
and
bit,
exciting.
but it's all, you know, it's truthful, you know, being...
No, it's great that you're able to sort of step back and look at your work and go, oh, I can really see what I'm proud of here, because that must be a difficult thing. I know a little bit about it myself, but when you're the actor in something and it's good, we've got to watch ourselves back and we've got to watch the thing that we're in and hear it, but we're seeing it very differently to how the audience is seeing it.
Yeah,
and
because
so
it's you.
It's great to hear that you've found that way of being able to watch yourself from a sort of take yourself out of the personal perspective that you've got because you did it, and actually see it from a slightly more removed angle.
Yeah, like you're not you. I think it's important to do that too, because you actually grow and develop as an actor. Because sometimes I think you either go one way or another. Like you can be overly critical of yourself, and I think sometimes with me, not sometimes, it's quite often that I'm very critical of myself and my own work. So I've had to train myself to become a certain way and take myself out of myself.
Yes,
like my mind away. Right, I'm not Danni now. I'm watching as an audience member, and I don't know who this person is, and I'm just watching it like that, and then I can actually give, you know, constructive feedback to myself instead of just being overly harsh, going, oh God, that was awful, I hate it.
That's a really great tip though.
Yeah.
For not just for voice acting, but for all forms of acting that you do. That's really useful advice to give people, because that's, like you say, that's how you improve, and that's how you can look at your improvement that you've made, and not in a critical way, but you know, we all look back at what we did before and what we do now and think, oh, I can see how I've improved. Or maybe you look back on projects and think, oh, I would maybe do that differently, but you can be proud of the journey that you've been on. Speaking of which, the journey that Emily has been on as a character, is there anything about that stands out to you?
It's surreal to me, because I remember when I first did the pilot episode and Emily was kind of this, not timid, but like a little bit more kind of in herself.
Yes.
Compared to where she is now. Like she's grown and developed and got stronger, and, you know, she's a lot different in season 2. From the scripts and everything that, you know, you're getting from it, you know, she's completely different.
Her character arc is...
she's gone from this, you know, this person that has not much life experience and hasn't been through, well, she's been through trauma with Jason and stuff like that. Like, that's all stuff that she's been through, but she's never been through something traumatic like a werewolf transformation, like the horror of horror, like a living nightmare. Nobody's ever gone through that, so nobody can possibly understand how that feels. But Emily, because she's gone through that throughout the course of the 2 series, like, she has grown into this really strong person, and each time she has a transformation now, it would never get easier, but it gets more tolerable. Like, she can grow to... She's grown a little bit better at dealing with it, if that makes sense.
She's embracing her challenges.
Yeah.
If you want to call them challenges.
Yeah.
Her living nightmare, which, you know, she's taken that and she's made it into her strength. Yeah. And she's making it into her strength.
And you can kind of...
embracing it as part of who she is now, as her identity, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it kind of links in with real life as well. This is why I love this show, because it's a bit like a metaphor.
I was thinking this. I was gonna say this to you. That's what I feel like it is. I feel like that's the relatable part.
It is, because you could go through something absolutely horrific, and for years on end you could be going to yourself, why me? Why did this happen to me? I'm a good person, blah, blah, blah. But it does it because it knows you can handle it, and it knows that you can grow from it and become the strongest version of yourself. So I kind of like that, because it kind of links in a little bit in like a metaphorical way. And I think with Emily's journey, like, she definitely does grow into a much stronger person. Like, she's been through the worst of the worst. You couldn't even possibly imagine what she's going through.
Going from an abusive ex-partner, which very much a real life problem, very much something that a lot of people can relate to, sadly. And then the werewolf, very much not a real life problem. we think. Who knows?
Who knows? It would be cool, but kind of not cool if it was real. I'd be like, oh my God.
Yes, but this imaginary, this fantasy problem, this curse, but mixed together with very real life problems, like you say, it becomes a metaphor for the things that we deal with. And yeah, like the whole why me, why does this happen to me? Often in life things happen to us and we feel like, am I cursed? Is this a curse?
Yeah.
But maybe that thing that you're going through can actually be the thing that makes you who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. They're obstacles put in our path on purpose so that we can become a stronger version of ourselves. And I think later on in life, I feel like everybody needs to go through, I know this sounds absolutely horrible, but I feel like everybody needs to experience a kind of trauma in order to be strong. And, you know, anything else that happens later on in life, you know you're going to handle it. It's like, come at me.
I think, though, I don't think that's horrible to say at all, but I think that's true.
Yeah.
And some of us think, oh, like, we can't imagine something happening to me if you haven't been through anything. And some of us have been through quite a lot. But something happens to all of us at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you look back, you see how that's really made you stronger as a person.
Absolutely.
And I think as Emily, as a character, I think it must be wonderful for you to be able to play this character that stands as a sort of example of that. I think that's really nice, you know, that's really great. And it's great as well to have a strong female character playing a female werewolf. Exciting, right? It's not something that we don't see loads of that. And we were discussing this in the studio last time about this whole, you know, being able to represent a strong woman going through this and being a werewolf. I mean, it's a really nice angle. I like. How do you feel about being able to portray that?
I think it's amazing. I think there's so much more interest in werewolves, and I love like vampire films. I love supernatural films, ghost films, all that kind of thing. I love horror. However, I just think werewolf has its own uniqueness about it. Like, 'cause I think it is very physically demanding, like I said before, and vocally demanding as well. But I also think it's a lot more, it tests your drama more, like your acting skills and your talent. Because I think with vampires, they just walk around.
It can be
like,
more internalised.
It's a lot more to do with probably how they move and stuff. But with werewolves, it's everything. And I think that's kind of what makes it stand out for me. And I definitely think it is, you don't see many kind of female leads doing werewolves. There's Ginger Snaps, which is a classic, and I love Ginger Snaps. And, you know, Catherine Isabella's portrayal of the werewolf, like, you know, how she got into that mindset where, you know, it kind of tied in a little bit with puberty at that time.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen
I remember
Ginger Snaps.
Yes.
She thought she was going through puberty, but she wasn't. She was becoming a werewolf. Yeah, and
again, a metaphor again.
Yeah. So again, it's all physically, emotionally demanding. So there's a lot to it. I think that's a lot more interesting for an actor than just playing like a character like a ghost or, you know, something that isn't as demanding.
I get the impression that you really thrive on challenges as an actor.
I do.
As a performer,
Yeah.
That's what you...
Yeah.
Right? That's what you like.
Mm-hmm.
You love the challenging stuff. Something that really get your... Not to use... not to be too punny here, but, you know, get your teeth into it.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
It was definitely punny.
That was just right there. I had to take it. But you sort of really can grab hold of that challenge, and I think that's what
Thrive
for
on
you.
it.
That's what you thrive on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah. Would you describe yourself as quite a physical performer? I mean, obviously, we spoke earlier about the role literally being very physical when you're in the studio. But is that something that you enjoy and something you would want to do more of?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think being physical as well as being emotionally invested and, you know, vocally invested into a character, I think it's important as well to have all three of them combined. That's why, like I said earlier, like I actually get into that, you know, physical state when I'm doing the transformation, because I think it's so important to bring all of them together, all three of them together.
I think that really comes across when you listen to it, though.
Yeah.
You can tell how the acting that you're doing, it makes sense why it's so believable. and so immersive, because you're in the studio actually really getting into the physical side of that transformation.
Like when Carl's edited this, the episode all together, and just listening to everything, it's like literally watching a show.
Yes.
But without your sight. It's very weird.
No, it is. It's like you say, people enjoy audiobooks a lot more now. It's such a huge thing.
Yeah.
And audio drama, I do think there's so much potential for what we can do with audio drama.
Oh, there's so much.
I think Tales from Davidstown it's really pushing the boat out on what can we include just in an audio setting. I think, like you said, you like to do the physical side of it, and the idea of, actually, let's bring it back to what you said earlier, because that was an interesting point about playing a werewolf as opposed to playing a vampire, a ghost, things that can be more internalized in the acting process, or more about a look or a way of just moving.
Yeah.
More naturalistic, if you will, I suppose, really.
Yeah.
But a werewolf is absolutely completely different to that. And if you were acting it on camera, then you would probably be in like a motion sensor suit. Is that sort of the what we call it? And motion capture, and then, physicalizing it in your body on camera too, as well as having the thought processes of the character and all of that stuff. Yeah. Right? So I imagine that the idea of being able to do that potentially would really excite you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's so nice to know that the audience and everybody that watches on Patreon and stuff like that, it's just so nice to have such positive feedback, because as actors as well, it is so, like I said, it's demanding. I'm exhausted.
I bet.
After a transformation. So it's just nice. And, I think it's interesting really, because you just think, well, how can an actor become a werewolf? But there's all the technology now, the CGI and the prosthetics and stuff like that, but it's not just that, it's in the performance. If the performance isn't there, then it doesn't work. And absolutely. I think that's why my favourite transformation, and I've said this before, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before, but my favourite werewolf transformation is American Werewolf in London. Okay. Because it is in everything. It's the physicality, it's in his voice, is screaming, you can see the pain,
and that's coming from him as the actor, not special effects.
Oh no,
CGI.
It's coming from him.
Yeah.
And even if you took the prosthetics out of it, and there was no CGI then, I don't think, but the prosthetics out of that, you'd still feel it as an audience member.
Key. That's key.
You'd still be like, oh, he's in a lot of pain, and that's what being a werewolf is. It's not. There's a lot to it, and I think that's why it's got such a big audience, and I think people love it, and that's why there's like 1,000 werewolf movies, because people just love making them, because it's a challenge, and people want a challenge, and I think that's what makes it so interesting.
And the idea of being a werewolf, like we've said, can be a metaphor for things we go through in our lives, whether it's like puberty and ginger snaps, or a man going through so much pain, changing into a werewolf. You're relating to the journey that they're on, because it can relate to things that actually happen in real life. What were some of the inspirations that you took when you got the role of Emily, and you had to start this journey, if you will, of playing this werewolf? What were some of the things then that you decided to take inspiration from? And American Werewolf in London sounds like it was pretty key as your favourite transformation, but the way that you researched the role, the way that you approached it, basically. Tell me a bit about that.
So I did rewatch American Werewolf in London, because it's just amazing. I watched The Howling, the 1981 version with is it Dee Wallace? Can't remember her name. I should know because I'm a horror fan.
Cal, do we know?
Dee Wallace. I don't know why I called her Dee Wallace. Anyway,
an extra D.
An extra D. I watched Ginger Snaps as well, because those I watched Dog Soldiers. I'm telling a lie, but the Dog Soldiers was a bit different. It didn't have the really painful, drawn out kind of transformation scenes, really.
Okay.
Not really, not in comparison to the other werewolf films that I watched, but it was good research. And
yes, whereas Tales from Davidstown, it's more, the transformations are really detailed and in-depth, so...
I feel like to compare it to anything that I've seen, I definitely think Tales from Davidstown, Emily's transformation would be very similar to American Werewolf in London, because it's very long and drawn out. And I think it's important for the audience to know that, because this character is constantly going through trauma, and it kind of relates to the story and how she's grown and developed as well as an individual. But for me as well, like, in order to, obviously werewolves, as far as we're aware, don't exist. Well, who knows, really? We've not discovered the whole world yet.
Werewolves are myth.
Are they? Are they really? So in order to get into a mindset similar to that, you've got to, usually I use real life experience. So things that traumatize me. Like, I really dig into my fears a little bit when I'm getting into that mindset, because I think it's important to make it real. So when she's going through, just as she's going through the werewolf transformation, it's like internal pain that she's feeling, as well as physical, like exterior pain. But, for me as an actor, I've got to make that real. So I've got to really picture painful things like needles and, like I picture things in my head. So
you imagine things that would hurt you.
Yeah, I picture things that would hurt me, like getting bit by a snake. Like, I know they're really random, but these are all things that...
It's visceral, right?
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, and
you've got to picture things that scare you in order to make it real, because this is scary for her. She's going through something horrific. She can't control it.
Yes.
It's out of her depth. It's out of her control.
So you don't, obviously, just in case anyone was wondering, you don't know what it's like to actually turn into a werewolf and have claws come out of your hands. And,
exactly.
And
you've got to really picture this pain,
so,
like things that would hurt you, and make it real. And that's kind of where the acting comes into it, where you've got to really... People are going to listen to the episodes in the future and just think she's thinking of being a bit embarrassing.
But that's the process that's so interesting, and that's the things that people want to know.
Yeah, things that could hurt you in real life. Yeah. Bring that to things that would hurt you, but not. And how
do you recover from these transformations? Because you're going through a transformation in the acting process. So of course there's the external pain that you picture, that you imagine, but the internal conflict and pain and trauma that she's going through, that's tricky, because I can imagine, because when you have to play someone who's going through something really painful and has trauma, and you as the actor are trying to draw on something to be able to portray that, because it's not, the thing about acting is that it's not lying, it's truth. So it is real, and you are really bringing those feelings up. But how do you protect yourself from those feelings, and how do you kind of take care of yourself after you've done a really intense scene?
It's all, I feel like this is something that I do talk about in my spare time, is a lot of mental health things. And I think the reason why I do that as well is because actors have to put themselves in a very, vulnerable position in their job. And there's a lot of things that actors do, like whether it's physical things or whether it's mentally physical, not mentally physical, but mentally driven things. Yes. Like for example, like playing an addict, for example, you've got to really obviously go to a dark place.
But you can't
You've got to
go and become an addict.
No, you can't, because that's incredibly dangerous.
Exactly.
And method acting can be dangerous. So people need to be a little bit careful with that. But you do need to use trauma from up here, or things that have caused you to feel a similar way to how this character's feeling. But in order to come back from that, in order to calm down and breathe and, think, right, I need to get back to Danni now.
Yeah.
It's all self-care. It's all in meditation. It's in breathing exercises. It's looking after your health, your physical health, having a nice warm meal, things like this, getting enough sleep, doing something like even just calling a friend just to bring yourself back to normality. I think things like this are really important. And this is why I do a lot of mental health videos too, because I believe that people should look after themselves, because especially actors that have to go through this for a living, it's very, very demanding. It's a very demanding job. And, if this is what you want to do forever, you need to also accommodate looking after this, because I think this is probably why a lot of actors can struggle with mental health, because they don't know how to look after themselves.
And we can be very vulnerable people, Because there's a reason that we do what we do, is because of the way that our brains are wired naturally drives us towards this creative path. And usually we're very empathetic people, or people that have been through things, because that's why we want to tell stories, because we want to connect with people. I imagine it must be the same for you. It's the impression I get. I mean, I've only met you today, but I feel like that's the kind of person that you are, you know? And yeah, you have to take care of yourself.
You do, and I think actors are naturally empathetic.
Exactly.
Like, when I know that I am, because, for example, my
well,
fiance...
it's what allows you to relate to your character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For example, my fiance's, I'm just going to use him as an example. When I was in America for Christmas, he showed me this thing that he had done when his cat died. And I know it sounds really, really sad, because, you know, I love cats and I love animals, so I completely thrive off that. But he had, like, the paws imprinted, that the cat died quite horribly. Like, it had something really wrong with it. It had an illness, and it was long going, and I could see the pain on his face, and I just burst out crying. And I think actors, you know, they're naturally quite empathetic people. Most people that I know are quite empathetic. Like, they feel how other people are feeling. And I think that is also very important to be as an actor as well, because you can really imagine this person that, you know, you're portraying is going through these horrible things, and you can really, you know, bring life experience through and think, actually, I know somebody that's gone through this, and I felt for them. And you can really put yourself in that mindset. And I think that's another thing that a lot of actors is empathetic, sympathetic people. We are, you know, we feel everything.
We're very sensitive, guys.
We are very sensitive, but in a good way. It's all good things.
Yes. Yeah.
It helps with the character.
Be nice to us, okay? Be kind.
Don't be mean, we're sensitive.
Don't be mean.
I'll cry.
Really putting ourselves out there. Yeah, but just chat a little bit about your relationship towards, or your dynamic towards, some of the other cast members. So, of course, Emily's best friend, Jess, played by Michaela, who you met in real life for the first time in the last podcast episode. Not that any of you would believe that was the first time they'd met.
Literally. Oh, and Michaela is amazing. I love her. And do you know what? It really helps as well, being an actor, getting along with your co-star, like somebody that you're supposed to be close with. That chemistry is so important. And I think, you know, it just makes it more believable to listen to, like, knowing, oh, you know, they really care about each other. And it's good that in real life you can, you know, relate to that. And I think as an actor, it definitely helps.
Yes, absolutely.
And of course, like, there are circumstances with, you know, actors in Hollywood, for example, where they've had to be best friends in a film or a TV show, and they've not really got on that well in real life. Not as close as what the characters are on screen.
And sometimes that doesn't come across at all, and it's just interesting to know about. But I think that it's nice, because it's nice to know that this is a cast that really do get along with each other.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And gel. And when someone's playing your best friend,
it makes it easier
on I was going to say on camera, but we just vibe. She's the landscape of the sound.
Literally, Michaela is wonderful. She's very similar to me. Like, she's very kind of caring, and, you know, like, she puts other people first, and she wants to help people grow and develop, and I'm all for that. And I think that's probably why we get on so well. But I definitely feel like when I listen to it, you can tell. And it's weird, because before I met her and I were listening, you know, to the episodes, I was thinking, we actually sound like we've known each other years. Yeah. And I'd never met her at this point.
Oh, that's so strange, isn't it?
It is. And I think sometimes your souls just link, and it just feels right. And I think you know that before you meet them. Sometimes when you're listening to it, it's like,
you get a sense, even though she's playing Jess and you're playing Emily, still that rapport kind of comes through.
Yeah, absolutely.
How would you like to see the dynamic between Emily and the other characters kind of evolve as the series goes on?
Well, there is a lot of development in place for that. So I think Emily's kind of tied in with everybody at this point.
Yes.
So I feel like she's got a relationship with everybody, whether it's a small
one. So those relationships have been established now between all the characters.
Yeah, you know, they've been established, and it's, you know, everyone's known. Everyone that listens to the show sees that and hears that. Sees that.
sees it in their mind.
Sees it in their mind.
You do. I do. I'm picturing it as we're talking about it, as if I've watched a TV program.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
But no, she's developing with these characters, and it's growing. And I think, you know, some of the characters in the show she doesn't vibe with because they're either not, you know, giving her anything or they're not helping her. And, you know, Emily is quite a caring person. I personally think she is. I think, you know, like, she worries. She's got quite a lot of built-up anxiety. But I think in season 2, she's kind of trying to control that now. And she's trying to be strong because she knows she hasn't got a choice. And I think it definitely stems from all the trauma that she's had. But she's developed a massive rapport with Mei Ling. Massive. And I think that's definitely going to develop further. But yeah, it's ended on a cliffhanger, episode 16, guys. So... who knows what's going to happen next?
Yeah, well, that's a big moment for Emily.
It's a massive moment for Emily. Yeah, she's you know, built up this strength now to be a strong character. She's got to be strong, and then this happens, and it's like, bam.
It's like another test.
It's like being stabbed. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, you know, like
punch to the gut. It's like, really? This?
Yeah, she's winded right now because she's in, you know, she's like, I've come this far and now you show up. Bam. You've just kind of knocks her down a little bit, maybe.
But then do you think her relationship with characters like Mei Ling, like with Jess, that those things are going to come into play as a kind of support system for her? People, you know, when a show starts to really take shape with its relationships between its characters and they start to form a real kind of group dynamic. Yeah. Do you feel like that's starting to happen now? And can you see it kind of going somewhere?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Like, she's very reliant now because she's built that rapport with Mei Ling. So she, you know, like, she's very kind of like, she knows that if she needs anything, Mei Ling will help. So she's built that kind of trust and that friendship with her.
Yes.
And there's other characters that she's still very wary of, like Serafina. She's kind of like, well, she locked me up. Why would I? Do you know what I mean? She's
Trust her.
She's not as... Because Serafina's a very kind of like... she's very kind of... What's the word I'm looking for? She's very strong-minded and strong-willed, and she's like, you know, the boss. Like, she's like, I'm doing this. Whereas, do you know what I mean?
Do you feel like Emily is still on her way to trying to become that person because, like you say, of her anxieties?
Yeah, I think it's like Emily gets to a certain point where she's like content and then something happens and she's like, crap. Do you know what I mean? It kind of knocks her down a bit, but then she builds herself back up, then something else happens and she's like, damn. And she goes a few steps back and that each time she is getting stronger.
The classic journey of a main character, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a good story without that.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely needs that, and she does have that going on in the series. And, you know, like, she's, like I said, the ending of episode 16 is just like whack, you know. Really,
like you say, a cliffhanger.
Yeah, cliffhanger, and a shocking one, because she's like, why are you here? You know, like, in her head she's got, the last time I saw you, you did this, you did that, you were horrible. And she's probably thinking, I'm not, you know, I think she questions herself a lot as well. Like, she questions her ability to do things up here. Like, her inner monologue is kind of like, you know, can I do this? Do you know,
I
like,
feel like
she's
that's
constantly...
I relate so much to that.
I think a lot of people do.
I think that's what, you know, we get it.
Yeah.
You know, it's how we move through our lives, is that we question our ability to handle things.
Yeah,
you know?
and I think she definitely does that for a lot of audience members. So that's probably why, you know, she is a significant character to a lot of people, because, you know, they can relate to how she feels and, oh, actually, I've been there, but in a metaphorical way. This is a metaphor, but I've been there with how she's feeling, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. So the series itself blends horror, drama, and mystery all together. Like we've already talked about, there's a lot of themes at play in this show. Yeah. But which of these aspects do you enjoy portraying the most? Do you have a favourite?
I really like mystery. Because I think it just keeps you guessing. And I think as an audience, especially people with a short attention span, it's very difficult for people to follow a story that's kind of already laid out. And I think with Tales from Davidstown, it's never just laid out. There's always something new going on. There's always someone cropping up and ruining her life. You know, like there's always
like
something.
you say, what could happen next? There's so many
Exactly.
possibilities.
And I think for, you know, I think mystery is always really good in anything. Like, whether kind of not mystery, but like keeping you on your toes.
Yeah.
Like, you know, constantly guessing, oh, you know, who done it? Like who killed that person? Who killed that person?
We all like to be working it out, be part, sort of be a part of the detective. It brings out your detective side because you're thinking what's going to happen next, which is, I think, pairs really well with the werewolf stuff. This show has quite a unique approach to werewolf lore. Like we've already talked about, you know, being a female werewolf, your inspirations and how you approach the role. But what do you think makes, like, is there anything that you think makes its approach to werewolf lore unique for Tales from Davidstown?
I think it's just a unique show overall. Like, it's completely different to anything I've seen. And I watch a lot of horror. I watch a lot of mystery. I like research and stuff like that.
Yes.
So I think if something interests me, I'm really invested. And I think with this show, it is unique. And although a lot of werewolf transformations are very kind of similar, you know, I think you can really feel the pain that she's going through. And I think you can also put it into a realistic point of view as well. Like, if werewolves existed, they wouldn't be silent, you know, they wouldn't be not screaming, they wouldn't be not in pain, you know. I think it is unique because we delve into even though it's supernatural and it's obviously mythical, you can actually, you know, relate to that a little bit. And you can actually think, well, in real life, if this was a real thing, let's say werewolves existed, that is how they would be.
Yeah, it's a what if, the what if part of this, I suppose. It's like we said earlier, the relatability of the character, the metaphorical themes at play make it unique.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Are there any other, so of course we've talked about you playing Emily and your thoughts on her, which has been so interesting to discuss. If you weren't playing Emily, is there another character you would be interested in playing in this series?
Yeah. I really like kind of Seraphina's character.
Yeah.
Because I've always been very drawn to darker roles. And although I'm kind of like glad I'm not playing that though at the same time, because I like challenging myself. So I like to be the protagonist every once in a while, you know, it's good. But I think Seraphina, there's so much there that we've not discovered yet. And I think there's just more to her character that we've seen so far that we're going to see. You know, like there's things like that, and
somebody who keeps you guessing. You're not sure.
Yeah, and she's mysterious.
Who are they really?
She's constantly mysterious. Like, you don't know her intentions really. Because you think, is she good? Is she bad? Like, you don't know because she's very kind of like mysterious. And I think that's what draws me to her type of character. Because I think it is, when I'm listening to it, I'm like, I like it. I like that because it's keeping me guessing. And
I guess you're curious about what your approach to that, as an actor, then your approach to that would be different to your approach to playing a character like Emily.
Yeah, they're completely opposite, in my opinion. They're completely opposite. Like, Emily's kind of, well, she's not normal anymore, but she wasn't born into the supernatural world.
Yes.
But she was brought into it. She didn't have a choice.
Yeah, she's us coming into it. She's the audience's eyes in a way, because as the protagonist as well, you know, she's that one who's been brought into this rather than being someone like Seraphina who's in it already and is coming out. And you're thinking, well, which side do you play for? What do you really want? What are your intentions? Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, that's super interesting.
Well, you don't know her intentions. No. And I think that's what makes it interesting, because as an actor, you've got to really picture something similar to how she's feeling. And it's kind of like, how can you do that? That's interesting. That would be really cool as a challenge. But I think with Emily, she's such a great character because she's more relatable. Like, people can relate more to that, like going through the trauma, going through constant trauma. There's a lot of people that live life going through trauma all the time, but then you can see the strength that it brings to her character, and you think, well, it's kind of like inspirational in a weird way, because
Oh no,
obviously
it is
supernatural
inspirational.
elements.
I think
but
she's an inspirational character.
she is.
Yeah.
She's very strong. She's a strong female lead. She really is, and
Yes.
you can see that as the show progresses. So yeah, no,
it's so great to be able to portray a strong female lead. I mean, as female actors, it's the dream for us, isn't it, to play roles like that? What do you hope? I suppose we've probably touched on this kind of already, but what do you hope that audiences take away from Emily's story?
You know, like, it goes back to the trauma. It really does. Like, she has been through hell, and if she can go through it and come out on top, you know, this poor timid girl that went through horrible things with her ex-partner, and you know, like, all this stuff that she's gone through, and she's kind of alone. It shows that you can overcome it, and you can become your own rapport, like build a rapport with yourself and think, I'm so strong, I can do this, you know, like believing in yourself. And
as much as she has friends and people that she trusts, she's got herself at the end of the day. It's who she learns to rely on.
Well, this is it. I always believe I should, you know, I do these mental health videos and stuff like that for actors, but I also do it, you know, because...
How long have you been doing that, by the way?
I do it more for fun. It's not like a career thing. I'm not doing it for likes or anything. I just want to help people, because I know that sometimes your mind is very, very powerful. Your mind is
of course, absolutely.
Your brain's a muscle. So you're training it to do things all the time. You constantly... And it's like a sponge. So when you're surrounded by a lot of negativity, like
it
the news
absorbs
and the
our
media,
experiences.
Absolutely. And it stays there. And it's like, how do you get rid of it? Do you know what I mean? And there are things you can do to help it and overcome it. There are things to, you know, to develop serotonin and, you know, dopamine and stuff like that. There are things that can help, you know, your brain release those chemicals. But I think, you know, for acting, it's so important, because you're constantly in someone else's brain. You're constantly having to put yourself in someone else's mindset.
But you've got to, as we've touched on, you've got to come back to yourself and make sure you're okay. I think it's great that you do that. So I have a couple of questions here from our Patreon subscribers.
Ooh.
So we've already asked about some of your modelling jobs. I have another question here from Howling Fan. What is your favourite part of portraying a werewolf? Do you enjoy the dual nature of the role?
I love it. Some of my favourite things there's no some, it's all of it. I think for an actor, I think it takes a strong actor as well to be able to make it, you know, mentally okay to do it, because it is very physically demanding, and like I say, you have to put yourself into a vulnerable position as an actor in order to create it believably. And I think with Emily's transformation scenes, I think, like I say, I delve into a dark place. I have to picture myself in a lot of pain, and for me, I think it's fun though. I know it sounds
I get
disturbing,
completely what you're saying.
but it's fun because I know the outcome's going to be really rewarding.
Yes.
I'm going to listen to it and think, holy crap, that's really, really... It's uncomfortable to listen to. Like, when I listen to it back, especially compared to season 1, when I listen to it now, it's a lot more uncomfortable to listen to. Because it's like, oh my God, like oh my God, I feel it. It gives me goosebumps because, again, I'm an empath, so I can feel everything. And like when I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, wow, she's in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And I think...
And you feel like that's gotten stronger from when you look back on your work in season 1, as opposed to now we're into season 2, creating those episodes, that you can see an improvement perhaps in your process?
Personally, I can see an improvement. I do think she's a lot, you know, I don't know, like it's just better now. When I listen to it, I think, wow, that's really good. You know, like, whereas before I was like, there's always things to improve on, you know, like as you're growing as an actor and understanding the character and the development of her role. Absolutely. There's always things to improve on in the beginning. But then by the end, you're like, wow, she's grown. Yeah. She's massive now. Yeah. She was this tiny little character, and now she's like, now
she's layered.
She's layered. She's
been
got
through
layers.
Things. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Another question from Lego Crazy. Do you have any advice for anyone wanting to get into voice acting or acting in general?
My advice is to have a balance, because I think sometimes, you know, when you're an actor, that is your livelihood, and that's what you want to do. And when you're really passionate about something, your mind is fixated on it. And I
Absolutely,
think
yeah.
it's good to, even though you always want to be acting and rehearsing and doing lines and everything, you can't, because your brain will shut down. So my advice to people doing acting, especially voice acting, because it is so demanding, because you lose 4 of your senses, have the come down, because you would do it in an exercise routine. So make sure you do it with your brain as well. So it's like going to the gym when you're obviously
warming up
working
and cooling
out.
down.
Yeah, exactly. Warm up and cool down is what I advise people. Do vocal warm-ups, which I am currently in rehearsal with myself. I am Googling the crap out of them.
Yeah, no,
I'm like,
great.
which ones work for me? Which ones, all right, okay, that one's good.
That's the thing. I think there's a lot of self-research that we do.
Yeah.
So when it comes to how to get into acting or into voice acting, I find anyway, there's no one way to go about it.
No.
You never really know what's around the corner. So like you say, it's practicing your own process,
Yeah.
knowing what works for you,
Yeah.
practicing that. And then in terms of how you get into it, I mean, how did you find your way into this, for example?
What, for Tales from Davidstown?
Yeah.
Well, Cal actually contacted me. Because
Who, you know.
I'd met him on a photo shoot.
Yeah.
And we won it. Me and my friend won a photo shoot. And it was with Cal, and he was like, I remember you saying you wanted to work together. I've got a role. And we practiced it out, and it worked. And here I am.
Sometimes things just happen naturally.
They just happen. And I
Yeah.
think they happen for a reason too, because voice acting is my first voice acting. Sorry, Tales from Davidstown is my
Yes.
first voice acting role. So it's been a really, really positive challenge for me. And like I say, it is important though to have the cool down period. So like obviously when you've been doing it all day and you kind of, my intuition is telling me, go do some more acting, go home, learn a script, blah, blah, blah. But the other part of me is like, no, you need to cool down now. And you need to listen to the other part, because I feel like sometimes we can overwork our brain.
Yeah.
And acting is very physically and mentally demanding.
Well, I was told once by somebody that I am an actor, but that's not how I should identify myself, because acting is my job. And if someone is an accountant and you ask them who they are, they don't say I'm an accountant. That's what they do for a living.
Yeah.
We do acting for a living, so therefore we have to separate ourselves from it. Like you say,
Absolutely.
it can be something that's really easy to hyperfixate on, and you don't know when to stop. As a self-employed person as well, when do you stop? You could go on and on and on, but you will, like you say, you will exhaust your brain, and you have to separate your identity from what you do for a living, and then that's when you create like a healthier relationship with it as well.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
You do need to have a balance, and practicing self-care, making sure you're looking after your mind and your body is very important, because you just put it through trauma.
Mm-hmm.
It's like getting a piercing or a tattoo. Like, obviously that's a bit different because that's physical pain, but like mentally, if you're playing a role that is,
It takes all of you.
it's very
Whether you're doing
draining.
comedy or horror, it takes your whole being.
Yeah,
we're
it's tiring.
using ourselves, our complete selves, to do a role, which is so different to other jobs that you can do.
It is.
What kind
and
of acting did you do before Tales from Davidstown? So this was your first voice acting role, but what other
Yeah.
kind of roles had you done prior to that?
I started off in theatre, so I never had a family that could afford for me to do acting from a young age. Like, I just didn't have that luxury. So it wasn't until I went to university and college that I did properly pursue it. I'd say I did a little bit in school, and I went to acting classes at Stage 84 in Bradford, but I just wanted to do it, make this a proper career for myself. And obviously it's very difficult. It can take a long time for that to happen. And I still work full time now because, it's just, you've got to survive.
We've got to pay our bills.
We've got to pay our bills. So I do work 4 on 4 off. But for me personally, like, it's an incredible journey, but it's a difficult one, and you've got to be prepared for the rejection, the constant rejection, because most of the time you will get rejection.
Absolutely.
You could be the best actor in the world, but if that casting director doesn't, think you look that part as well,
It's completely impersonal.
it's not a personal attack. Like, there's a lot of talented people that struggle, And I think you've got to be prepared for that as well.
Yes.
And you've just got to be prepared in general for a lot of downfall. But that's, again, why you need to look after yourself.
Yes, and separate yourself from it.
Yeah, I did a lot of short films. I did a few feature films. And again, it's very, very demanding.
And were those genres, like, did you do, were those genres that you've done before horror, fantasy, or were they different to that? Is this your first foray into this genre as an actor, or have you done that before?
I've done a few short horrors. Horror is my favourite genre because I love it. Horror, mystery, psychological thrillers, all that type of thing. I just love it. I love it. I love dark things. I'm a bit weird like that, but in a good way. I try to be positive.
We all have a dark side.
No, we all have a dark side. But yeah, I love all those types of genres. But for me as an actor, I like to do it all. Because I think it's more fun. You're doing everything.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't want to tie myself to one genre. Even though I love horror, I would love to be a final girl in a lot of things, but I don't want to fixate on that. I want to focus on comedy. I want to test my knowledge on how to...
I completely relate to that. People say, well, what kind of acting do you want to do? And it's like, well, all of it.
All of it. That's the whole point of acting.
Yes.
You're playing everything. And
when I was younger and I used to think about things I wanted to do, right, what I would catch myself doing is I'd be watching TV and there'd be a lawyer and I'd be like, oh, I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be a police officer. And then I realised eventually that I was like, oh no, I want to be an actor so I can play those things.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that. I only have
like
one life. I want to live as many lives in my life as possible. Therefore, I'm going to become an actor so I
do
can
it
try
all.
and
Absolutely do it all.
To be a werewolf.
Exactly. When am I ever going to be a werewolf? It's not an occupation.
No.
Unless you're Emily.
On her CV.
On her CV, I'm a werewolf. But this is it. Like, you can play whoever you want.
Yeah.
Like, auditioning for... This is why I like to not play the same character in everything. I try not to anyway. But it is very, very easy in acting to be typecast. And I think that's the dangerous part of it, is that, casting directors or, directors have seen you in a role like, playing a bad cop or a bad character.
And then you get...
And then that's
your
it
type. Yeah, and the thing is...
forever.
There's not...
Like, no.
Yeah, you have to use your own... skills to push yourself, because other people will see you and they'll put you in a box.
Exactly.
They can't help it. It's just, that's what we do, isn't it? We see people a certain way. So yeah, variety, we all love the variety, and sometimes you see someone in lots of horror stuff, it's because they've been typecast that way, but
I know.
they have other skills that you just haven't been able to see.
Some actresses just love horror that much that that's all they want to do, and that's
great
perfectly
too.
Fine. But for me personally, as a performer, I like to do it all.
I feel like I understand that completely. So I have one last question from our Patreon subscribers. So this is another question from Agent 00 Soul. Danni, have you got any metal band recommendations?
I love that one. It's nothing to do with being werewolf.
No,
but
this is a good different
just
track now.
A personal question for you, because I'm a metalhead.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, I don't know.
I'm not a metalhead, so for me this is just complete discovery.
I can list them all. There's Avenged Sevenfold, I love them.
Okay.
Favourite one I've ever seen live would be Slipknot. Absolutely incredible. Metallica, Iron Maiden, Bring Me the Horizon, Bullet for My Valentine, Disturbed. I can recommend them all. There's just so many. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, really.
Can't pick a favourite.
Blink-182. I like pop punk too, so I'm not just all metal. Rammstein, System of a Down, Limp Bizkit. I like it all. That's my vibe. But those are my recommendations. Just your big ones, because the reason I'm recommending the big ones that everyone knows is because when you watch them live, you see why they're so famous.
That's why they're so good. Yeah, there's nothing like a musician or a band that can put on a good live show.
Oh,
yeah. I know what you mean. It's like if someone says pick your favourite, it's like how I
don't know. You're asking a lot right now.
Yeah, but I get that as recommendations. That there's some good. I'll check those out. I mean, if there's a few of those that I'm familiar with.
Oh really? Which ones?
Yeah. A bit of Limp Bizkit. I did a job. I did a Halloween job where the warm up was Break Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one of those days where you don't want to wake up. I'm not doing it right now. It's not the right time.
I also there's a cover that Miley Cyrus did of Metallica's Nothing Else Matters.
Was
She did
it
it with
acoustic?
she did it with Metallica,
Oh.
and it's sick. It's so good.
I've never heard
And
that.
I would, on their way to that job, I would listen to that and really get me like angry.
Do you know what? I also think I listen to music every single day because it helps me with my acting.
It does. Honestly, music is so
Good.
I was going to say underrated. It's not. It's a real tool for getting mood, for getting you into a headspace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you're playing a role where you're playing a serial killer, so specific. But if you're like playing American Psycho or, Norman
something
Bates,
that's hard to get into, it's
you need
challenging.
to listen to like something heavy
Yeah.
because you're a killer.
What do you think Emily would listen to music-wise?
Oh, as a character?
Yeah.
I feel she's an indie girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a photographer, she's indie, she's retro. I feel like she's cool.
Yes,
she's very
she's a cool girl.
Whereas
Yeah.
me, Danni, doesn't like indie, not that much. But I feel like I listen to it if I feel like the character would listen to it as well.
Get you into the headspace of her and who she is, exactly.
Yeah. And I feel like she's a Fratellis girl.
Yeah?
Oasis Fratellis.
Okay, yeah.
Definitely. That's what I'm picturing anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of all kind of weird music too, like not classical music, but I feel like she'd listen. Yeah, I feel like she might delve into a bit of that as well, which again isn't really my vibe, but it's Emily's in my head.
Vibe. That's great because that really gives you a difference between yourself and the character as well, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm there like in a mosh pit. Not really. I would get knocked out. I'm 5'2".
Okay, yeah.
Probably stay away from them.
No, small but powerful.
Yeah, they are pretty powerful. Download Festival 2023 was lethal.
Really, I've never been in a mosh pit.
Yeah,
I feel like I would be scared.
Oh, you can get injured massively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially when you're tiny and they're all big, muscly men with their tops off. I'm like, oh, God, get me out of here. Sweaty, gross.
Very sweaty situation.
Yeah, no, it's not for me.
Yeah. My goodness.
I'll watch him. That's it.
Yeah, stay a safe distance away.
Stay
Enjoy
safe.
the music.
6 meters.
Mosh alone. Mosh in a safe space.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. Mosh with personal space.
That's what you need. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Danni. This has been great. Lastly, if you could sum up... Sorry, let me do that again.
Outtakes.
If you could sum up Emily in 3 words, what would they be and why?
Oh. Now you've put me on the spot. So, what I would describe Emily in 3 words, that's where my mind goes blank. I feel she's a very grounded character.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like she's very grounded. Like she, and the reason why is because she's, no matter what you throw at her, like she doesn't feel like she's going to get through it, but she always does. And she stands up for what she believes in. She's quite, there's a fire to her as well.
Grounded.
Yeah.
Fiery.
At times, not often.
times.
I won't say it all the time.
No,
but
but
she's started developing that now. She's
Yeah.
had to. Because she's had to be like, well, this is my life. I want to take control of my life. And everybody else, it feels like everybody else is controlling me, apart from me. Like Mei Ling, like Serafina locking her up. Like she fell out of control. And now she's kind of like, well, no, screw you. Like I feel like I'm getting that from her now.
Yes,
Much
I think
more.
grounded and fiery. There's
Definitely.
a combination of those things. It feels like the dynamics of the character.
Yeah, definitely. And a third one, she's very is it resilient? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Resilience, good. I like that. I like that for
Is
her.
that the term? I think it's that word.
I think so.
It's she's she's a determined character.
Yeah.
And she wasn't at first. And I think that's where the
And that
strength comes
shows her
from.
resilience.
Yeah.
It's like
yeah.
grounded, fiery, and resilient.
Yeah.
I like that for her. I think that
feel-
sums her up really well.
Yeah, I'm glad you
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
I don't sound like crazy when I'm saying I'm like, I think those 3 words are probably what I describe her as.
Yeah.
But I'm always like, my brain goes blank when I get questions like
It's
that.
hard
So
to
I'm like,
summarise such a multifaceted person in 3 words, but I think you've done a really good job there.
There's more to it than just 3 words,
Oh, yeah.
There's not really words you can put into to describe her as, because she's just so diverse.
But I feel like I understand your reasoning for those words. I feel like that's why that makes sense,
Yeah.
No, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
This has been fun.
This has been fun. I feel like I've learned so much.
You have.
I feel like I've finally gotten to ask you questions that I've had. And it adds so much to listen to the show now, knowing how you feel about it and the things that you do. So that's really great.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to hearing some more of season 2 at some point.
Me too. I'm looking forward to doing it.
Exciting stuff. Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. So some very exciting news about Tales from Davidstown getting out there into the world is it will be getting released across many more streaming platforms from the 12th of February. So we'll be on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, YouTube, where we get our podcasts and audio stuff. Basically, you'll be able to listen to it on those platforms, and the graphic novel also will be getting released on Instagram and Facebook from the 12th of February as well, so that's something to look forward to. Very exciting. Thank you so much, Danni, for chatting with me today. I've had a really lovely time.
Oh, me too.
And thank you to you guys for listening and for watching, and I hope that you've learned some interesting stuff today. I know I have. I've had a really great time, and this has been episode 3 of the Tales from Davidstown podcast. I've been your host, Louella, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!